Welcome to the Founder podcast. I'm so excited to have a good friend on the podcast with me. Her name is Amber Okolo-Ebube, and she is the founder of Leading Little Arrows. So thank you so much for being on the podcast.
Thanks for having me. I'm so excited. Yay.
And Amber is located in Texas for all those out there, and she is a powerhouse out there. She has her hand in school choice and helping families. So I'm so excited to dive into this podcast episode with you.
It's an honor to be here.
When people hear the phrase school choice, it can feel abstract or political. From where you sit, what does school choice actually mean for families?
Candidly speaking, I think it's hilarious that this has become political because parents have choices from the very beginning. It is what preschool they're going to go to, but it also can be what diaper brand to use or what formula, breastfeeding or formula fed. When are we going to do solids? All of these things have been parent choices. And I really firmly believe that as a parent, our children are God given for us to make the best decision for that child. So they are our children. They're not the government's child. And so a parent, their whole job is to create a productive citizen of this country. And sometimes it may look like homeschooling to get them the education they need that's more individualized. Sometimes it may look like a public school that has a really great ROTC program. Sometimes it may look like a hybrid program where they go in a few days and then they stay home a few days. And it really is what is going to get this child educated, and then the end goal of a productive citizen in our country. And I named all those things because I am a parent that did all of those things. I have homeschooled. I have a child that graduated from the traditional public school that she loved. I have children that are in hybrid programs. I have children that have done a mix of all of those based on the season of life that they are in. So to hear that it's a political talking point, it really does make me giggle because parents always had a choice. And I feel like parents forget that.
Yeah, and I like that you mentioned all that stuff because I saw so much of myself in that. Because not only have I homeschooled my kids, they've done hybrid programs as well, but myself as a child, I was looking for an ROTC program before I joined the military. So bringing all those to the forefront is so important so people can really see like this whole school choice movement isn't about politics, it's about
Yeah,
people and what people need in their lives.
I agree.
So before you were a Microschool founder or advocate, you were a mom navigating the system. What wasn't working and what pushed you to look for alternatives?
Well, if I had a week-long podcast, we can get into that, but I'll give you the the abridged version. I started when I got married 16 years ago. That's so crazy. When my husband and I got married, I always saw myself as like the PTA mom that's going to be in charge of the snacks, and I'm going to be the room mom. And, that's how I saw myself. I did not see homeschooling on the table at all. My husband, when we got married, I worked in the banking industry and I was on the track to become an underwriter. That's what I wanted to do. In the loss mitigation field, and I was working in escrow, just working my way through the different touch points of the mortgage industry. So I was full on career girl. That is what I saw myself doing. And then I had our daughter who was brilliant and taught herself to read at 2.5. And then I had, no, I don't understand. I have another child that recently was ill and almost lost her life. And we were walking through what is life going to look like where we had a neurotypical healthy child that then contracted a disease and it really negatively affected her life. So I left the career path because being a mom was always the most important part. So we talk about choice again, right? I chose to stay home and I was looking around for a good preschool for my 2.5-year-old going into 3. And I'm like, I cannot afford $1,000 a week for this little bougie private school. My husband, we're on one income. My husband just graduated college. So you know how those first entry jobs are. You're not making a lot of money. We had 2 kids and one on the way because we wanted as many kids as possible in that short amount of time, apparently. I just was like, I'm going to go online and look for something to just I'll just do it myself. And then I discovered homeschooling, and it was the biggest blessing. And then again, we have this child with special needs, and when it came time, I was not confident that I could give her what's better than the school system at that time. I was like, this is going to be best for her. And we placed her in. And then the advocacy mama had to show up. And I'm here young, like in my early 20s, looking like a baby and coming in and having to really fight and find my own voice and really advocate for my daughter to the point where the sped director told the teacher, whatever that little girl needs, just get it for her. Just whatever you want to order, just send it my way. We will do it, because they knew I was going to advocate, and I'll take it to the state level if needed. And so, yeah, that's what really started it for me. Was I just wanted to make sure that my kids had the best education. And for one child, it was homeschool. And then for the other child at that time, it was public school. And when public school didn't work anymore, I pulled her and homeschooled her and created a program around her. And that's how actually Leading Little Arrows was formed, was because of my daughter that had unique abilities. And I wanted her to have a place where she was more than merely tolerated, that she was celebrated and she had true inclusion. And that's what started Leading Little Arrows.
That's awesome. And one thing that you said was that at first, public school was actually the best place for her, but then it wasn't. So, can you tell us about that evolution? Because I know that there's a lot of parents in that space of like, this was working last year,
Yeah.
but something feels off now. What was that evolution like for you?
Well, I'll start off with my husband and I are intercultural cultural marriage. He's from Nigeria, grew up in Nigeria, went to a boarding school and had completely different education than I did. And I was thinking, okay, I'm going to homeschool my kid. I have to get all the facts together and present it to my engineer of a husband that's like, hey, what if we didn't send them to school? And I just did it. And he tells me years later, he was like, that was a cheaper option. So I just went, well, it was cheaper. So we made a promise to ourselves to take it 1 year at a time, and we still do that promise. And the baseline, the main checkpoint is, can another environment do better than what we can do at home? So if they are in public school, can the public school do better than what we can do at home? And that's the metric, because again, we're trying to raise children who are well-rounded, well-educated, and love the Lord. That is the main thing that we care about. We don't care if they're going to be a doctor, a plumber, whatever. As long as they're well-educated, they love the Lord, they're people of good moral fiber, that's what we care about first. And we believe if you have those things, you will automatically become successful in whatever you do. People on YouTube who are eating and they're making millions of dollars with videos of people eating. We don't we just leave their future and their success to the Lord, and we just try to do our part. So every year we're like, okay, is this going to be better for them to be in this program, or is it better for them to be at home? And sometimes it's not better for them to be at home. So with our daughter, it was not better for her to be at home because I was pregnant. I have, 4 children, 4 and under, and we hadn't adopted my eldest yet, so I had no help. And so for her to go to public school was better. We had, therapies there, amazing teachers. But this little girl was also smart, and she realized that she only had to do 20 minutes of individual time with her teacher, and then she was done. So she would just sit there. We call her Turkey. Turkey would just sit there for 20 minutes and not do any work, because she knew after those 20 minutes, she'd go off and do whatever she wants to do, all the fun group activities and all the great things that her teacher had in her classroom. But when it was time for that actual work that she needed to progress, to meet her goals, she was like, meh, I'll just sit here for 20 minutes and just throw things or just do hilarious, we call it hilarious activities. So we sat down and I was like, this isn't working for her anymore. And I told the teacher, we're going to pull her. And it was a hard decision because I loved her teacher. I literally handpicked her back to, all the avocation that I did, that came highly recommended. She won teacher of the year several times in our district. She loved those kids. And she was also, or is also, a mom of a child with special needs as well, because she understood what I was going through. But it wasn't a good environment for her. And so we said our goodbyes and cried, and we started our homeschool program. And she went into a really good program for ABA. The lady was amazing, and she basically recreated school for her. And there was no more sitting for 20 minutes and waiting them out because she's there all day. And so she learned very quickly that her old way wasn't going to work. And that's where we saw a lot of growth for her. And ironically, we're looking again at, okay, she's 14. And when we pulled her, she was 7. This was 7 years ago. And we're looking at next school year and we're saying this is not the best environment for her anymore. It's time for her to go to a private school that we've selected that focuses on life skills. And she has kids her age that are also having similar triumphs and similar struggles. And so, again, we're at this point of our year where we're like, okay, who needs to be at home with mama? Who needs to be in a hybrid program? Is public school on the table? And I think if everyone realizes with school choice, that it really is about the parents' right to choose.
Mhm.
And it's not about poo-pooing the public school, because I still believe in the public school system. Most of the people who my children are gonna interact with are gonna be public school kids who turned into adults. I wanna see a strong program for our local public schools, but I also wanna see other options so that the kids who do not thrive in that setting can leave and go to a place that they will thrive at, and we still have those productive citizens in the society.
Yeah, it's so good to hear like the evolution and as well like you didn't leave because of something that happened at the school cuz that tends to happen a lot. That was why I was pushed out and a lot of parents that I talked to were pushed out of the public school. You actually had a very positive experience. It was just your child needed something else. And
Mhm.
it's not this public school versus charter versus micro school versus homeschool. It really is like what does the child need?
Yes.
Yeah.
And if you look at how taking out when it's children, we're so attached and our hearts are involved. But if you look at it from a business standpoint, there's gas stations that tend to be on the same block together, or fast food restaurants will tend to be on the same block together, and everybody gets business. I mean, you'll see Walgreens and CVS, and I'm in Texas, so those are our little pharmacies. You'll see those around the same corner. So Walgreens will be on one side and CVS will be on the other because they'll make more business together. If one doesn't have it, then they can go across the street. Versus you have one place that's here and the other place is way across town. You're less likely to go in that area. So if I'm looking for what we're going to do takeout, we're going to do fast food, I'm going to go to the part of town that has like 4 fast food restaurants so that everybody, you want McDonald's, you want Whataburger, you want Chick-fil-A, it's all in the same circle. Versus if they're saying, oh, I want Popeyes, and Popeyes is way over there, I'm not going there. So it's the same thing with education. Let the people have several different options. And I don't like this idea of, oh, well, then they'll leave if there's a choice. I don't get that because it's almost like you're admitting that it's not a good option if there's a choice. I would rather see there's different choices. So let me make sure that my choice is the best, and let me look at my own program and make sure that I have a lot of things that a family who's looking for a choice will choose mine. So we'll choose a micro school or choose a charter school or choose a traditional public school or private school. I think that if we open up the ability to choose and have a real free market society when it comes to education, not only will the children and the families benefit, but the schools themselves will benefit as well.
That's amazing. So, if a parent is looking right now, what part of Texas are you in again?
North Texas, so
North.
right outside of Dallas.
So, right outside of Dallas, if a family was looking and they found leading little arrows, what would they find?
They would find that we have a waiting list.
No way!
We will find that we have a waiting list, but I will also point them to other places in the area that will work well. But if you were coming for a site visit, you'd see children being able to have autonomy in their education when they're older. When they're littles, you'll see us meeting the families and the children where they are. So if we actually just had one of our little babies, he does not like to do a worksheet. You put a worksheet in front of him, he is going to throw it across the room quite literally. But if you put an iPad with the same worksheet content on a boom cart, he will do it all. He will do it. If you give him a stylus that looks like a pen, he'll actually write. If you give him a pen and a paper, you're not going to get the same result. So we try to, instead of having this whole power struggle with the child, makes no sense. We just try to meet them where they are and push them just a little bit further. And eventually that same child that I mentioned that will do the iPad but will not do the worksheet. Last year, he wouldn't even sit at a desk. And so our goal was to get him to sit down at the desk and hold an object. So we will meet kids where they are. And if they're gifted, and we don't stop them. So if they are supposed to be in the 6th grade, but they can do algebra, well, we're going to meet them where they are and give them the algebra work. And we partner with the parents. Every kid, whether they're neurotypical or they have special needs, everybody gets an individualized education plan because everybody is individualized and they need, where you may be strong in reading, you might be weaker in math. So rather than making the child conform, say, rather than making the child conform to like everything on the 6th grade, this is what you need. No, maybe there's some gaps that we need to cover. Maybe mom needs a little bit more of, I'm going to say, backbone to be able to stand up for her child in other areas. Or maybe she needs to realize that or dad needs to realize there is a speech problem, and we actually walk the parents through some of our preferred providers so that they can get the outside help that they need to help the child uh, thrive.
Awesome. So, when it comes to school choice policies, how do they impact your homeschool and microschool families in practical day to day ways, at least in Texas?
In Texas, we just passed our wonderful Texas Education Freedom Award and our Act, and it's amazing. Families are going to get between $10,000 and $30,000 to be able to select where their child goes. So you can do a program like mine that is a accredited hybrid homeschool program. You can do a traditional program. You can keep your kid in private school. You can choose charter school. There are we're not as good as Florida yet, but y'all are our big cousins and we're trying to get there. But it was a celebration when the award passed or when the ESA passed in May. So now parents actually get to have different options. I would break my heart when families would call and they weren't able to afford our tuition. So this is giving them a chance to be able to do that. And we have been piloting our online program for the past 2 years, but now that we have ESA funding, we actually can open up our online program to those families on our waiting list. So they will actually get a chance to participate with LLA in a completely different way that still is engaging and still is fun and still individualized, but a little bit more practical. At one point, we had a family coming 3 hours one way to be with us. So
Wow, that's
yeah. So
good.
now those families actually can just be online, and we are launching 2 locations in East Texas for families in the rural parts of Texas that don't typically get this type of education. And that's all made possible because of the ESA's passing, and I have the ability to hire and do all that. So I'm
Yeah,
super
I have to
excited.
say, as a parent that's been in a non ESA state and then in an ESA state, it makes a world of difference. For me personally, when I was going around checking out schools here when we first moved here, I knew that I had the state behind me to help me pay for their education
Yeah.
versus what can my husband and I pay for realistically, which
Yeah.
would have limited our options. So that's amazing that that's happening out there in Texas because it really is a game changer.
It is, and our home even with the homeschool community, they don't get as much, but they do get $2,000. That's some curriculum. That's
So
a museum, membership. That's huge for
yes.
families that were eating beans and rice in order to give their child the best education that they could. So I'm just over the moon and thrilled, and I know that it's not gonna be perfect. It's the first year, but
Mhm.
I'm committed to doing my part to provide feedback and make sure that families know about this. Actually, so by the time of this recording, obviously, come out a little bit later, but this is the week that the applications opens for families to be able to apply. So I'm super excited. I have a
Right.
couple of workshops that I'm helping parents apply and get all these documents together. I've been telling you about this for 2 years now, but I hope you listen and you have your documents ready because now it's time to actually get those funds and educate your child in a way that works for them.
What are some of the biggest misconceptions you hear about school choice or educational freedom, especially now because there's a lot of buzz and the applications opening up?
Yeah.
What are you hearing?
So in Texas, we're the great state of Texas. We are like our autonomy and our freedom, and we don't want the government to take over. Not a thing. So one of the main misconceptions that I've heard from the homeschooling community is that parents will be forced to test their children. And that simply is not in the law. It is not true. Only private schools have to test, and those tests are nationally normed tests. So it doesn't have to be our state test, which is the STAR test. It doesn't have to be that. It could be iReady assessment. It could be the ITBS. It could be whatever that private school decides. And there are some nationally normed tests for people with special needs. So it doesn't have to be this cookie cutter, one size fits all testing. So that's one misconception that is all over the place, and that it's a slippery slope. Once you let the government come in, they're going to take over. And there's no data that shows that across any of the states that have ESAs. And I mean, Florida, again, big cousins, y'all are similar to us. We want our rights. We like all of our autonomy. So that is the main one, is that you're going to lose something by opting in. And then the other one is that it's taking private funding from, or taking public dollars and diverting it to private schools, which is a little bit true. But also, if you think about when you go to college and you fill out your FAFSA and you get a Pell Grant, those are public dollars. But you can take those public dollars and you can go to a private university and still spend your public dollars at a private university. So this is not an out of the ordinary, out of the unheard of philosophy. We do it at the collegiate level. So what we're doing is allowing the parents who may not be able to afford, or even if they can afford, it will put a financial strain on a parent to have to pay a $10,000 or $28,000 tuition. They can take those dollars and go with, and it has them follow the child. But also in our state, when we did pass that huge bill, we also passed the bill for public funding for the public schools, and they got way more, 8 times more than what our little ESA bill got. So there is still some funding that's available for the public school, and you're not robbing the public school in order. And again, it shouldn't even be choose the goodness of the public school versus your child. I think your child should win. Sorry, hot take.
You mentioned that the public schools also got funding as well. I think
Hmm.
it's just so easy a lot of the times to make school choice reform and policies the big bad wolf. It's like, oh, like, well, they're taking all our funds. Like, what about public schools? But I believe that we're all better together. And I think we all need each other because as a founder myself, I couldn't do everything.
Yeah.
I couldn't service every kid the way they needed to be serviced. And sometimes I would refer kids back to public school because they just simply had more resources than I
Yeah.
did. Has
Yeah.
that ever happened to you where you had to refer someone out just simply because there was a better fit for them?
We have a little baby boy. So all of our parents, by the time that the parents graduate, so in our program, we have a profile of a student and then a profile of a family. Though that is just as important as the student success, because if we can put everything that that family needs in our wraparound program, the child is going to automatically thrive. So all of our parents know how to build a binder and an online cloud. So they know how to and their binder have one. The first sheet is like a baseball card sheet protector, and they put every single doctor, therapist, anybody that they encounter. I always tell them, go to the doctor's office, grab a couple of those business cards and stick them in those slots. So in the front are all of the specialists, all of the case workers, everybody that interacts with their child. That's in that front sheet. You have a copy of all their evaluations, their IEPs. All of that is in a binder, a physical binder that they can take with them to doctor's appointments and all that. But everything else is also backed up on a cloud. And I showed them how to build that up. So when they go back into the public school, so our one kid, P, had to go back into the public school. Some of it's because he graduated out, which we're so proud of him. The other part of his mom could no longer afford our program and actually got evicted from her apartment because she was trying to do both. And she's a single mom. And we worked with her on, she was had an abusive type of relationship with her co-parent. So we helped her get her backbone, like I said about earlier. She got her backbone.
Each
So
of well,
little man had to go into the public school, but when she got there, she had all forwarded all of her documentation before she even stepped foot onto the campus. Then she brought her binder and she knew what accommodations to ask for. So P actually went in 2 weeks before the standardized test, got recognized. So he didn't get any test prep from the public school, but he just coming straight in from LLA and what we do in our program. Got recognized high scores where he was recognized by his scores, got like student of the month. He got a whole bunch of awards at the end for his citizenship. Now he is in his classroom. He's in an ADHD type of environment where they have the perfect lighting and all the things that he needs. He's doing football. He's doing tennis. He's got all A's because he has the right accommodations. And that is what I'm like. I no longer just care about coming into my program and what can we do here, but I also have to look forward to what happened. What type of kids are we producing? That if you see them on the street, you're like, okay, that kid had to have gone to LLA because they have da 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 da, or that mom must be an LLA mom because she came to the public school and she had this binder, and I've seen this binder before, and I've seen this email template before. So that is how when they transition out, we always ask, can you give us like 2 weeks? But sometimes they can't. They've moved or they whatever, but we have been consistently working with them every single month in our tribe cafes, which are our parent universities, to make sure that those parents have everything that they need in case life happens.
It sounds like you have so many things in place to fully support parents. And the
Mhm.
things that really stuck out to me, and I want you to explain to parents out there so they can either come to you or really start building this from them for themselves. You mentioned wraparound services
Mhm.
as well as your tribe cafe. So can you
Mhm.
tell us more about that and how parents can support themselves if they are transitioning between schools or homeschooling and that kind of thing?
Yeah. So when we have initial contact, the first thing I do is I have a 20-minute consultation with the parent. And I can tell within those 20 minutes what pathway they need to go on. Some of them need to get their child tested. Some of them need some time at home. Some of them just need to work better with their current provider, whether it be public school or micro school. Some of them are a candidate to come to LLA. After that, we really do ask, we have a very long questionnaire than parents fill out before we even meet them face to face. And we have an admissions team that reads through that and we score it based off of a rubric. And if we have different questions that we need to ask, we write those down. And then I step away and the admissions team does the family interview. From that, we have identified what this child needs and what this family needs. So we really do. I tell the parents, we get all up in your business. So you might need some food stamps. We're going to help you fill out those food stamps forms. Does your child have insurance? We're going to help you fill out Medicaid if you don't. If you do have insurance, have you checked your benefits? What type of benefits package do you have? We really get in there. Do you have an OT? Do you have a speech therapist? Have you contacted your local school district to get an evaluation? Because we still have partnership with our local public school. We rely on them heavily for those evaluations because why not? It is the right of the parent to have those evaluations given under child fine. So why would we do that? Then we take that and all of those things and we build a program. I hate to use the word experiment, but it's trial and error for that first semester. And we are talking to the parent. We're relying on them. We're giving them homework that doesn't look like the traditional homework. Some of that homework may look like, hey, your kid is struggling with fractions. We need you to cook with that kid. And we need you to say 3/4 of a cup. And then we need you to double recipes. And here's the recipe that you're going to use. You need to put that baby on a sleep schedule because little Johnny is coming in and he's exhausted. Sometimes it's with children with autism, we call it the zoomies. Sometimes in the middle of the night, they're awake. And the tendency is, oh, they're so tired, they can't go to school. No, they need to go to school and let them be tired and grumpy, but they need to know because just like my daughter, she pick up on patterns and it's like, oh, I
Yeah,
just stay
no
up and I'll
crash
go.
play.
Yeah, no. You bring them, we'll be fine. We'll figure it out. Or sometimes it's, hey. So the snacks that you're sending or the lunch that you're sending is making that baby hyper. Let's talk about nutrition. And we do all of that with the parents. And then we sit down as a team and we're like, okay, what is our next Tribe Cafe going to be on? Maybe it's about nutrition and we bring in a chef and that chef talks about how to build a nutritious plate for your child. Or maybe it's, ooh, all these kids are crashing out. We need to talk about executive functioning and we need to spend a little bit of time teaching these parents what behaviors mean. And when they're leaving, eloping is one way that they may physically elope, but sometimes kids elope by bad behavior. If something is too hard for them and they don't want to do the work, they may act up. How do we know that this behavior is a symptom of something if we're not taught? So we do those in our tribe cafe. I also do those privately. I do homeschool consulting for the families that aren't in our program, but also if a child is not ready to be in our program or a family's not ready, we don't just send them into the woods and say, well, best of luck, friend. Offer coaching, a coaching one-on-one with them, or we contact a local school, that are in our network, and we say, hey, I'm going to send somebody your way. Here's the deal. I think that they would do better at your school. And sometimes it's keep that baby and why aren't you switching too fast? And these are the things that you need to ask for accommodations at the public school level.
And one thing I want to highlight that you said was that you did the tribe cafe, you do trial and error, you're talking about what they're eating. This is really a holistic
Mhm,
education that you're offering children.
mhm.
And
Yes.
I think that's what parents have been wanting, and a lot of us could not truly articulate what it was that we were
Yeah.
wanting. At least I'll speak for myself. I couldn't in the beginning. That I wanted my children to be seen. Let's talk about what's going on. Even with my students in the classrooms, like this child is missing his mom, like mom's working out of the state. So we didn't have that space to holistically look at children, at least when I was in the public school system teaching. That's what I want to say about LLA. That's beautiful. This
Thank you.
very holistic approach. And not only that, it's like you have really made it a system within LLA because
Yes.
you told us the whole thing. I was like, this is like a whole system. It's ingrained in
Yes.
LLA.
Yes, it's a part of our culture. We spend a lot of time on building our culture and cultivating that culture. We have a tribe guide, and everything is around a tribe mentality. So it's like, hey, tribe, that's in our emails. And I tell the parents, like, you're in charge of your child. You're my boss. One time a parent told me when we were doing an ARD meeting, well, you know the child better than me. I was like, oh, no, I don't. I just know this system, but you're in charge. You're the parent. You tell me what you want me to say, and I'll crash out if we need to. But I can only go as far as what you allow because you're the parent. And there are times where the parent's like, I don't think that that's true. I think if we just give them a little bit more time, they'll rise to the occasion. Or I think that Sally's just being lazy. And I'm like, okay, you know your child better. And all it is data. And then the parent may be wrong, but I'm still going to respect the parent's choice. And I think that that is what we're forgetting. Again, that these are not our children. We may love them like our children. We should love them like our children, but they're not our children. Those are the parents, and the parents have a right to choose, and they have the right to make a mistake. Because as you are a parent and I'm a parent, I want the right to make a mistake. And so if they get it wrong, I'm still going to celebrate the fact that they advocated for their child. We're going to sit down together and workshop it out. And I'm not going to sit there like, I told you it was wrong. I'm going to ask probing questions and say, well, okay, well, this didn't work out the way we thought it would. Here's the data, because we're collecting data all the time. We're a very data driven program. As much as we're very holistic behind the scenes, everything is counted, everything's accounted for. We meet every Wednesday to talk about these kids. How are they meeting their goals? And then we're sitting down with the parents, giving them data backed information. And now we're saying, okay, well, this is what the data is showing. And this is what you're saying. How do we meet in the middle? There is a disconnect somewhere, and we work together to figure that out. We're not putting ourselves as a school versus parent type of relationship. That's unhealthy. And I've seen it too much in the education system. It's systems or models versus models. It's parents versus kids. It's kids versus teachers. It's parents versus the school. And that doesn't make any sense. The whole goal is supposed to be to educate these kids to be productive members of society. So we are going to have to be on one accord. I don't have to go and provide for these children. I don't have to go make sacrifices like a parent would have to make for their kid. And even if that parent is uneducated, even if that parent has a sixth grade education, it is still their child. And I
Yes.
will still respect that parent. And I have had parents that have cussed me out, cussed out everything. And I sat there and took it like a champ and heard what that parent was trying to say. Maybe they're not articulate. Maybe they don't have emotional regulation yet, because we do work on that with LLA. I parent the parents, but there's a heart behind it. And there's a fear behind it. There is a desire to see their child do well. Very rarely, unless the parent has a illness that's mental or some other factor that we're not going, a nuance, Every parent wants their child to succeed. And I start from that. Every parent wants their child to succeed. What is the dream that they had when they held little Johnny? They weren't like, and Johnny's going to have dyslexia and struggle. That was not their dream. They had a dream for their child. And how I need to hear that dream and help you see that we can still make this dream come true. It may just look a little bit different. Sorry, I got really passionate about that. I really feel like parents are in charge.
Yeah, and honestly, there was something that you said that was so great, and it was a little healing for myself as well. You said that parents have the right to make a mistake as well.
Hmm.
And even as an educator, even as a founder, I still fear that I make mistake with my kids every single day. And I think that is like the driving force behind why parents like are really pushing themselves to try to find the best thing for their kids because they're afraid of the mistake and they have this huge desire to see their kids succeed, like you said. So thank you for saying that
You're
because
welcome.
there's something in there. I will speak for other parents. We all have that fear of making a mistake and messing up our kids.
I'll tell you what I tell my parents and I tell my students, if you make a mistake, you're like a scientist. Scientists make mistakes all
Yes.
the time. You just make a mistake. It's just information. It's what you do with the information that makes it good or bad. We're always going to make a mistake. It's fine. There's no perfect. Only perfect parent is God, and I am not him.
Yeah.
So, and I have to go and apologize to my kids, and it's always fun after we get the parent to calm down. They're like, I'm so sorry, and they're crying, and the emotional charge is finished. I'm like, it's okay. Because again, some of these parents don't have the emotional intelligence. I'm a millennial kid and I look at my education like in my early years, I had like the best education. Then some things started happening politically. And then as I got into my high school years, I lost a lot of that free time and that autonomy. And I have a sister that's Gen X, and she had a way different experience in high school that was more positive than I had in high school based off of, just trying to regulate and solve problems by, creating different rules and doing different things. And I feel like as a millennial parent, I'm always striving to get that education back that I had in the earlier part of my life where the test was like, we're going to take a test and it's just going to give us information until I got to high school and it's like, you're going to take this test. Or if you don't take this test, I'm not getting my, like, it was a different amount of pressure in Dallas ISD. I graduated in 2005 and it was a wild time then.
Yeah.
But I try to find with the parents like that heart of, hey, thank you for telling me what your fears are. And that sometimes that's the only way we can get it out. The parent has put this pressure cooker or this lid on them and they are holding it in and holding it in. And sometimes I'm getting the smoke from the public school or the
Mhm.
private school that they came, or the doctor in 2013 that told them something. And I'm catching all of the strays, but I can take it. I'm a big girl and I know it's not personal. I know it's for their child. So I actually get a lot of information when that parent comes in on 10. And then I'm like, okay, so what you're telling me is that Johnny is not able to sit still and you're a little bit afraid of him having an ADHD diagnosis because you're afraid that that's going to haunt him for the rest of his life. Okay. Did I get that right? All right. Can I tell you something, Mom? Can I tell you that when you go apply for a job outside of the military, if you go apply for a job, they're not asking you if you had an IEP in the 6th grade. I promise you, they're not looking at that. They
Yeah.
don't care. It's not, that's another misconception. It's not following you the rest of your life. So can we just get the baby the things that he needs? Because in other states, there's actually a study that came out in Louisiana, and I'm not going to give the exact numbers because I don't want to, falsely state them. But there's a case study done on the men in prison in Louisiana, and over 50% of the men there had a dyslexic diagnosis, and all of them, or almost all of them, had high IQs. So they just thought they were dumb, and they thought, what's the point of education? Because I'm dumb, and they dropped out. And I'm like, parents, it's going to do more harm. If the child has a diagnosis, at least they know, okay, I'm not dumb. I just think differently. I
Mhm.
have a sister that was diagnosed with dyslexia as a high schooler. And she tells me, she's 52 now. She tells me how she struggled thinking that she was stupid. And then how much of a relief it was that when she got to high school, we moved cities and she got to high school and they tested her and she had dyslexia. She was like, "Oh my gosh, this is amazing. Thank you so much. There's a reason why." And then she got the tools that she needed. So I tell that story to my parents when they're afraid that a diagnosis is going to limit their child. I'm like, let me tell you a couple of stories. But again, a lot of that happens when the parent just can't take hiding anymore. And when the parent comes in, I tell them, be prepared to grieve, be prepared to feel guilty because we're going to get in deep. We're no longer putting the stuff and sweeping it under the rug. And I think if we're looking to sum up school choice, it really is a transparency issue.
Mm,
Parents need to be able to see things in a way that they understand the school ratings in a way they understand, test scores at a normal time, progress reports at a normal time across the board. Even in micro schools, data needs to be given so that the parent can be able to make the right choices for their child.
yeah. So, looking ahead for you, if school choice continues to expand, what do you hope education looks like in the next 5 to 10 years to wrap us up?
Well, for me, we're building out schools across the state of Texas. We're starting our Foundry program, so it is a program for schools to be able to be accredited eventually. It's a 3-year commitment, and those founders will be able to leave the Foundry program with an option to be accredited on their own. So I'm really excited about that. In Texas specifically, in 5 years, I hope that we get more money and more funding so more families can do what the families in 2026, 2027 school year are able to do, which is make an informed decision and not worry about money. Across the nation, I'd like to see some more options for dyslexia. Like I told you, my sister, so that's a very close to my heart that when they go to college, those things that they had in place automatically go with them. I'd love to see that. I'd love to see some expansion into pathways where if you're in a micro school, whatever model, micro school, homeschool, that there's a career pathway for these kids to be able to understand what they want to be and then have a pathway there. There are too many high schoolers right now that are saying they don't know what they want to be and they're seniors. It's really, really scary. I'd like to see some military pathways. I have a child that is a Marine right now, and she's about to be stationed in Japan. Yeah,
Mm,
yeah, she's doing some intelligence stuff, and she was a public school kid and started in ROTC. I'd like to see that the military look at other options, micro schools, homeschools, and have a military pathway as well. The sky is the limit, honestly.
that's amazing. Thank you so much, Amber, for being on the podcast and sharing your heart with everyone and sharing what you do and the impact that you're making in Texas. This was really exciting and I loved speaking with you. So, for everybody that's out there, can you share how they can contact you if they'd like to contact you?
Yep. So you could go on my website, leadinglittlearrows.com. There's a contact us button. That's the most simple way. I check my email quite regularly. So Amber at leadinglittlearrows.com is another option. Those are the best ways to get in contact with me. If you do LinkedIn, that's a dangerous. I don't check that as often. So sometimes I'm like, oops. So those two methods, website and email, are the best way to contact me.
Thank you so much, Amber. And thank you to everyone that's been watching Founder to Founder. And we will catch you on the next one. Bye.